A billionaire raises a champagne glass in a Lagos ballroom, his governor's daughter fiancée glittering beside him, 400 guests applauding. 20 feet away, a pregnant woman in a hotel uniform is wiping down a table, and when he sees her face, the glass stops halfway to his lips. But the family who orchestrated her disappearance from his life had no idea what they had just thrown away. Before we get into this story, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Lagos, London, Houston, Johannesburg. Please let us know. Now, let's get into it. 8 months before the champagne and the ballroom and the 400 guests, there was a Sunday morning in a Lekki penthouse, and the only sound was oil popping in a pan. Amanda Okafor stood at the kitchen counter in a faded cotton wrapper, kneading dough for chin-chin the way her mother had taught her. Heels of her palms pressing forward, fingers folding back, a rhythm so practiced it had become unconscious. On the stove behind her, a pot of oha soup was thickening. Beside the cutting board sat a white ceramic mug filled with black coffee, no sugar, brewed exactly the way Obioma liked it. She had been making that same mug of coffee every morning for 3 years. Not because he asked, because she knew. Obi came into the kitchen barefoot, still half asleep. He walked up behind her, slid one hand around her waist, and reached over her shoulder to tear off a piece of the dough. She swatted his hand without turning around. He ate it anyway. Then he picked up the white mug, took a long sip, as in kissed the side of her neck. She adjusted the collar of his t-shirt, a gesture so small and automatic that neither of them noticed it anymore. They had been married for 3 years. 3 years of Sunday mornings exactly like this one. No children, not for lack of trying. Amanda had done the test, taken the herbs her mother-in-law suggested, visited 2 fertility specialists and prayed more novenas than she could count. The doctor said there was nothing clinically wrong with either of them. Sometimes they said, it simply takes time. Amanda believed them. She had to. The buzzer rang at 11:30. Obi's mother, Chief Mrs. Nkechi Okafor, did not knock. She entered the penthouse the way she entered every room, as though the space had been waiting for her. Her 2 daughters followed. Ada, the eldest, walked in scanning surfaces, already finding things to disapprove of. Chinyere, the middle sister, sat down without being invited. None of them greeted Amanda. Nkechi looked at the kitchen, at the flour on Amanda's hands, at the soup on the stove, and her mouth tightened into a line that was almost a smile. Still cooking, she said in Igbo. Not to Amanda, to Ada, as though Amanda were not standing 6 feet away, as though Amanda, who was also Igbo, who spoke the language fluently, could not hear every word. At least she is useful for something. Amanda wiped her hands on a cloth and said nothing. There is a kind of cruelty that does not need to raise its voice. It simply enters a room, sits down, and rearranges everything to suit itself. And Nkechi was that kind of cruel. She did not hate Amanda. Hatred requires emotional investment. Nkechi simply did not regard Amanda as a person worth considering. Ada opened the refrigerator, inspected its contents, and aside. Chinyere asked if there was bottled water, and when Amanda brought it, she did not say thank you. Then Nkechi said, "Sit down, Obioma. We need to discuss something as a family." She produced a brown folder from her handbag and set it on the dining table. It landed with a soft, deliberate sound. Obi looked at the folder, then at his mother, and something shifted behind his eyes. Not a surprise exactly. More like the confirmation of something he had been dreading. I have spoken with Barrister Chibuzo, Nkechi said. Her tone was the tone of someone announcing the completed transaction. The papers are ready. All that is needed is Obioma's signature. Amanda felt the room tilt. What papers? Nkechi did not look at her. Divorce papers. The word landed in the kitchen like a stone dropped into still water. Amanda looked at Obi. Obi looked at the folder. 3 years, Nkechi continued. 3 years and no child. The Okafor name cannot end with one son who has no heir. I have arranged an introduction with Governor Ease's daughter, Sandra. She is 28, educated, and from a good family. This is the right decision for everyone. Mama, Obi started. It is done, Obioma. Nkechi's hand came down flat on the table. Not a slam, a punctuation. Barrister Chibuzo is on the phone if you have questions about the terms. The terms are generous. Amanda will be taken care of. Ada nodded from across the room, arms folded, her face arranged into something that was supposed to look like compassion. For Yichinyere studied her fingernails. And Obi sat there. When he sat in that chair and he did not stand up, he did not raise his voice. He did not say, "This is my wife, and you will not speak about her as though she is a contract to be terminated." He opened his mouth, and what came out was something weak and shapeless. Can we talk about this later? And Nkechi dismissed it with a wave of her hand, and he let her. Amanda watched all of this. There is a difference between not expecting something and experiencing the actual absence of it. She had always known, somewhere in the quiet back rooms of her mind, that Nkechi would eventually come for her marriage. But knowing it was coming did not prepare her for the specific physical sensation of watching her husband choose silence over her. She stood, she smoothed her wrapper. She looked at Obi one more time, a look that asked nothing and expected nothing, which is the most devastating kind of look a person can give. Obi, she said quietly, is this what you want? He looked at the floor. She nodded once, to herself, not to him, excused herself, and walked to the bedroom. In the hallway, she heard Nkechi's voice, low and satisfied, speaking to Ada. The words were not meant for Amanda's ears, but sound carries in marble hallways, and Nkechi had never learned to whisper because she had never needed to. Once the governor's daughter is in, we control the ease contracts. The construction tenders alone are worth $2 billion. This was never about a child. Amanda stopped walking. She stood very still in the hallway, one hand on the wall. Then she went into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and impressed both hands flat against her stomach. She did not know yet, would not know for another 2 weeks, that she had already missed her period. That the life she had prayed for 3 years for was already there, already forming, while in the next room her marriage was being dismantled for the price of a government contract. She cried, not loudly, not for long, 1 minute, maybe less. Then she went to the bathroom, washed her face with cold water, and began to pack. She took 1 suitcase. She left the jewelry, the designer bags, the silk scarves that had never felt like hers. She took her clothes, her Bible, her mother's recipe book, and the white ceramic mug from the kitchen. She did not take it to hurt Obi. She took it because it was the only thing in that penthouse that had ever truly belonged to her. She called an Uber from the lobby. Obi watched from the balcony. He stood there with his hands on the railing and watched the woman he had married walk out of the building with 1 suitcase and climb into a silver Toyota Camry. She did not look up. The car pulled into Lagos traffic, and she was gone. He stood on that balcony for a long time after the car disappeared, but he did not go after her. 8 months is a long time in Lagos, long enough for a woman to find a room in a face me, I face you apartment in Yaba. where the walls are thin and the generator runs out of fuel by midnight. Long enough to learn that morning sickness on a crowded BRT bus is its own particular kind of suffering. Long enough to discover that the body you thought had failed you had been quietly doing its work all along. Amanda found out she was pregnant 2 weeks after she left the penthouse. She was sitting on the floor of a clinic in Surulere, waiting for a routine checkup, when the doctor told her. She stared at him for a long time, then she laughed. Then she covered her mouth with both hands and pressed her forehead to her knees, and she stayed like that until the nurse touched her shoulder. She never told Obi. There was one moment when she almost did. She was lying on the narrow bed in her Yaba room, 4 months pregnant, her phone in her hand. His number was still saved under My Person. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Then she remembered the dining table, the brown folder. His eyes were on the floor, the silence where his voice should have been. She put the phone down and turned to face the wall. She found work at the Grandview Hotel on Lagos Island, one of those towering glass buildings where the lobby smells like money and fresh lilies, and the staff entrance smells like bleach and reheated rice. She was hired as a waitress for the events floor. The pay was modest, the hours were punishing. She was on her feet for 10-hour shifts while the baby pressed against her spine and her ankles swelled until her shoes left marks. Mrs. Ifeoma saved her. Ifeoma was the head housekeeper, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses perpetually perched on her forehead, and a voice that could silence a room or soothe a child with equal ease. She took one look at Amanda, the careful way she walked, the way she rested her hand on her belly when she thought no one was watching, when the quiet pride that kept her from asking for help. And she understood. Ifeoma began saving plates of food for Amanda in the staff kitchen. She covered Amanda's bathroom breaks without being asked. She scolded her gently for carrying trays that were too heavy, and when Amanda insisted she was fine, Ifeoma would look at her over those reading glasses and say, "I did not ask if you were fine. I told you to put the tray down." The weeks compressed into a rhythm of survival. Wake at 5, bus to the island, uniform on, smile at guests who looked through her, carry platters of small chops to people who spent more on one evening than she earned in a month. Come home, eat whatever Ifeoma had saved, sleep, repeat. The baby grew. Her hands, which had once kneaded dough in a Lekki penthouse, are now wiped tables and polished wine glasses and carried stacks of dirty plates. The same hands, different work. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, her manager called a staff meeting. The Grandview had been booked for a private engagement party. 400 guests. Full ballroom, premium service, all hands on deck. Amanda's manager read the details from a clipboard. The client is Okafor Holdings. Obioma Okafor, engagement to Sandra Ease, daughter of the governor. Amanda felt the name land in her chest. She kept her face still. She had become very good at keeping her face still. Ifeoma, standing beside her, went rigid. She had heard the name Okafor before, not from Amanda, who never spoke about her past, but from the way Amanda had flinched once, months ago, when a guest mentioned the Okafor real estate empire in passing. Yes, Ifeoma had filed that reaction away the way she filed everything, quietly, completely. After the meeting, Ifeoma found Amanda in the supply closet. "I will take your shift," Ifeoma said, not a question. "I need the overtime." "Amanda, I need the money, ma. The baby is coming in 2 months. I need every naira." Ifeoma looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded, because she understood that sometimes pride and necessity wear the same face, and it is not your place to tell someone which one they are choosing. Saturday arrived with the inevitability of things you dread. The ballroom was transformed. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across 400 place settings. Champagne towers rose from linen-covered tables. A live band played high-life music, while guests in agbada and lace and Italian suits filled the room like a slow tide. Obi stood at the center of it. He wore a navy blue agbada with gold embroidery, and on his left wrist the gold wristwatch that caught the chandelier light every time he moved his hand. His father's watch. The one Amanda had found in an antique shop in London and given him for his 30th birthday. He still wore it. Whether this was sentimentality or habit, even he could not have said. Sandra Ease stood beside him, tall, elegant, her smile calibrated to the exact wattage the evening required. She was not a bad person. She was a careful one. She had been raised to understand that love and strategy were not mutually exclusive, and she moved through the room with the grace of someone who had been prepared for exactly this kind of evening since childhood. Nkechi Okafor worked the room like a general, surveying a conquered field. Every city, every handshake was a transaction. Every smile was an invoice. And at the far end of the ballroom, near the service entrance, Amanda Okafor wiped down a table. She moved carefully, the way pregnant women move when they are tired and their feet have been swollen since noon. She cleared plates. She refilled the water glasses. She kept her head down and she did not look towards the center of the room. Then the MC called for a toast and the room shifted its attention to the head table. And Obi raised his champagne glass, and in the movement of turning, just a casual half turn, his gaze swept across the ballroom. He saw her. Not immediately. The way you see something your brain is not prepared to process. First the shape, then the uniform, then the belly, then the face. And then the world narrows to a single point. And then everything else, the music, the champagne, the 400 guests, the woman standing beside you, all of it falls away. And there is only this. Amanda looked up. Their eyes met across 30 feet of the ballroom floor. His hand stopped. The champagne glass tilted. A thin stream of gold liquid ran over his fingers and onto the white tablecloth. He could not move. She looked away first. She had always been the stronger one. Obi set the glass down. He did not remember doing it. His legs were moving before his mind caught up, carrying him across the ballroom floor, past waiters and guests, and his business partner who said something he did not hear. Sandra said his name. Obi? He kept walking. He reached her table. She was wiping it with a white cloth, her back half turned to him, and he could see the way her shoulders had stiffened, the way her hand had stopped mid-motion and then forced itself to continue. Amanda! She did not look up. The cloth moved in slow circles across the table surface. Amanda, look at me. She stopped. She straightened. She turned and he saw her face fully for the first time in 8 months. Thinner, harder around the edges. The softness he remembered from Sunday mornings was still there, buried under layers of exhaustion and resolve, but it was not for him anymore. You should get back to your party, Obioma, she said. She used his full name. She had only ever used his full name when she was serious. His eyes dropped to her belly. 7 months. He counted backward without thinking. 8 months since she left. 7 months pregnant. The math was simple and devastating. Is that? Go back to your fiancé. She picked up her tray and walked toward the service corridor. He followed. Of course he followed. He had spent 8 months not following her, and the accumulated weight of that failure propelled him now like a debt coming due. The service corridor was narrow and harshly lit. Fluorescent tubes buzzing overhead, stacked crates of glassware lining the walls. The glamour of the ballroom ended at that door. On this side, the hotel was pipes and concrete and the smell of industrial soap. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was low, strained. Amanda set the tray down on a steel cart. She turned to face him. Tell you what? Amanda, the baby, why didn't I tell you? She repeated it flatly, not as a question. Her hands rested on the cart, and he could see them. Those same hands that had kneaded dough and adjusted his collar and held the white mug, now reddened from cleaning solution, the knuckles dry, the nails cut short for work. You sat in that chair, she said, and you said nothing. Your mother put divorce papers on our dining table, and you looked at the floor. You chose nothing, Obi. You didn't choose them, and you didn't choose me. You just sat there. She paused. Something shifted in her jaw, a tightening that she controlled before it could become anything visible. I chose myself. That is the difference between us. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. There is a specific kind of silence that happens when a person hears the truth about themselves, spoken plainly and without decoration. And there is nowhere to put it, except inside the body, where it will live for a very long time. A sound at the corridor entrance. Sandra stood in the doorway. She looked at Obi. She looked at Amanda. She looked at Amanda's belly. Not the kind of look that is dramatic or shattered. Something quieter and more terrible. The look of a woman assembling facts into a picture she had suspected, but chosen not to examine. She reached down and slid the engagement ring from her finger. A 3-carat diamond that caught the fluorescent light and turned it into something cold. She placed it on the steel service cart, next to Amanda's tray of dirty glasses, and the contrast between those two objects said everything that words would have made smaller. I'm sorry, Sandra said. She said it to Amanda, not to Obi. Then she turned and walked back through the door. And her heels clicked evenly on the ballroom floor, and she did not look back. Obi stared at the ring on the cart. Amanda stared at nothing. Then the door opened again, and Nkechi Okafor filled the frame. She took in the scene with the speed of a woman who had spent a lifetime managing crises. Her eyes moved from Obi to Amanda, to the belly, to the ring on the cart, and her face rearranged itself into offense in under a second. This girl is lying, Nkechi said. Her voice was controlled, but her hands were not. They gripped her clutch bag as though she were strangling it. Whatever she has told you, that child is not yours. She has planned this. I never said it was. Amanda's voice was quiet, level. She was not looking at Nkechi. She was looking at a point somewhere past all of them, past the corridor and the hotel and the last 8 months. I never said it was his, she repeated. I didn't come here for him. I came here to work. I came here because I need the money to feed myself and deliver this baby. And this was the shift I was assigned. So if you will excuse me, I have tables to clear. She picked up the tray. She walked past Nkechi without touching her. She pushed through the door and returned to the ballroom, and the door swung shut behind her. And Obi watched it close the way a man watches the last train leave a platform. The engagement did not end with an announcement. It ended the way expensive things break. Quietly, from the inside, while the surface still looks intact. Sandra's people left first. Governor Ease's aide collected the gift envelopes from the head table without making eye contact. The band played one more song, then stopped mid-chorus when they realized no one was listening. Nkechi tried to hold the room. She smiled. She circulated. She told 3 different people that Sandra had taken ill, but the story was already spreading through the ballroom like a crack through glass. And by the time the last guest left, everyone knew that Obioma Okafor's pregnant ex-wife had been cleaning their tables. Obi found his mother by the champagne tower, still performing. "Mama!" She turned, her face already assembling the next strategy. "Obioma, listen to me. We can manage this. I will call Barrister Chibuzo in the morning. I know about the contracts." And Kechi went still. "The easy construction tenders. The 2 billion naira. I know that is why you wanted Sandra. I know that is why you sent Amanda away." He said it quietly, the way a man speaks when he has moved past anger into something flatter and more permanent. "You sat in my house and told me my wife was barren and my name was dying, and the entire time you were calculating percentages on government contracts." "Everything I have done," Nkechi said, and her voice was steady because it always was, "has been for this family. You stole the only person who loved me for free." He said it simply. No tremor in his voice, no rising volume. Just a sentence laid down like a stone that would sit between them for the rest of their lives. He turned and walked out of the ballroom. He did not say goodbye to his sisters. Ada and Chinyere stood by the door like sentinels who had just realized the fortress had been abandoned, and neither of them said a word. Obi went to find Amanda, but she was already gone. So she had finished her shift, returned her apron, collected her overtime pay in cash, and walked out the staff entrance while the Okafor family was still disintegrating in the ballroom. He found Mrs. Ifeoma instead, in the staff locker room, changing out of her uniform with the slow movements of a woman who had been on her feet for 12 hours. "I need to find her," Obi said. "Please." Ifeoma looked at him over her reading glasses. She studied him the way she studied everything, thoroughly, without hurry. "That girl came to this hotel with nothing. No husband, no family, no money. 7 months pregnant. She stood on her feet for 10 hours a day, and she never once complained, and she never once asked anyone for anything, and she never once spoke your name." Ifeoma closed her locker. She rebuilt herself from nothing. You don't get to walk back in because it is convenient." She left him standing there. 3 weeks passed. Obi did not go to Amanda's apartment. He did not send a driver. He did not use his money or his connections to force his way back into a life he had forfeited. Instead, he did a quiet thing, perhaps the first truly quiet, unselfish thing he had done in 8 months. He found Dr. Emeka Udo, Amanda's OBGYN, through the hotel's health insurance records. He did not ask for her address. He walked into the doctor's office and paid off Amanda's entire medical bill. Prenatal care, delivery, postnatal follow-up, everything, and asked that his name not be attached to the payment. Dr. Udo looked at him for a long time. Then he said, "She is healthy. The baby is healthy." He paused. As in, leave it alone. Obi went home to the Lekki penthouse, the same kitchen, the same counter where the white mug no longer sat. And he sat at the dining table where his mother had laid out the divorce papers, and he wrote a letter. He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not ask to see the baby. He wrote what he should have said 8 months ago, sitting in that chair while his mother dismantled his marriage, and he did nothing. The words were plain and undecorated, the way Amanda had always preferred things. Honest, without performance. He sent the letter to the Grandview, addressed to Mrs. Ifeoma, with instructions to pass it to Amanda. Inside the envelope, alongside the letter, he placed the gold wristwatch, his father's watch, the one Amanda had found in a London antique shop and given him for his 30th birthday. The one he had worn every day since, including the night of the engagement party, including every day she was gone. He let it go the way you let go of something that was never yours to keep. Amanda received the letter on a Wednesday. Mrs. Ifeoma brought it to the Yaba apartment, handed it over without comment, and sat in the doorway while Amanda read it. The letter was short. 3 paragraphs. No apologies dressed up as explanations. No self-pity wearing the costume of remorse. Just a man saying plainly what he saw when he looked at himself, what he should have done, what he did not do, and the acknowledgement, without expectation, without asking for anything in return, that she had been the bravest person in the room that day, and every day since. Amanda read it twice. Then she folded it, placed it in the drawer beside her mother's recipe book, and closed the drawer. She picked up the watchbox. She held it for a moment, felt the weight of it, the smoothness of the leather case, the memory of the London afternoon when she had found it in a small shop off Portobello Road, and knew instantly that it was meant for him. She set the box on the top shelf of the wardrobe. She did not open it. She did not throw it away. Some things you are not ready to look at. That does not mean you are ready to let them go. 6 weeks later, Amanda gave birth to a boy. Mrs. Ifeoma was in the delivery room, holding her hand, saying nothing, being everything. The boy was healthy. He cried with the full-throated authority of someone arriving exactly on time. Amanda named him Chukwuemeka. God has done great things. She held him against her chest, her chicken and her hands, the hands that had kneaded dough and wiped tables and cleaned champagne glasses and packed 1 suitcase on a Sunday morning. Those hands held her son, and they were steady. They were so steady. 6 months after that, Amanda left the Grandview. She had saved enough to rent a small commercial kitchen in Surulere. She started a catering business, office lunches, birthday cakes, private dinners for people who wanted home-cooked food that tasted like it meant something. The food was excellent because Amanda cooked the way she did everything, with precision and warmth and without shortcuts. The business grew. Word of mouth carried her name through Lagos the way it carries anything good, persistently without advertising, from one satisfied mouth to the next. The white ceramic mug sat on the counter of her new kitchen, the same mug from the Lekki penthouse. Now it held her own tea, brewed strong, first thing in the morning before the ovens were lit. The mug had not changed. Its purpose had. Obi did not remarry. He severed ties with his mother and sisters, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with the slow withdrawal of a man who had finally understood that the people who claimed to love him had only ever loved what he could provide. He did not see his son. He respected the distance Amanda had placed between them because he understood at last that respecting her choices was the only form of love she would accept from him. But every month, a deposit appeared in a bank account Amanda had not opened. The amounts were not extravagant, enough to matter, not enough to feel like control. She knew who it was. She never touched the money. Twice it sat in the account and accumulated quietly, like a question she was not yet ready to answer. And on a morning in Lagos, in a rented kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and rising dough, Amanda stood at her counter with her son in a high chair beside her. Chukwuemeka was babbling with a wooden spoon. Amanda was kneading dough. Her hands moved in the same rhythm her mother had taught her, in heels of the palms pressing forward, fingers folding back. The white mug was full. The sun was coming through the window. On the top shelf of the wardrobe at home, the gold watch box sat unopened, but it had not been thrown away. She didn't need him to come back. She needed to know she could stand without him, and she could. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and let us know. Should Amanda open that watch box? We'll see you in the next one.